Most people aren't forgettable because they're boring. They're forgettable because they don't share memorable things. But what if I told you that there's an exact science in telling stories people can actually remember days, weeks, or even years later? So in this video, I'm going to share 7 storytelling secrets that I wish I knew earlier and that the best experts, educators, and creators are using to tell stories that stick and convert. And to save you time, let's learn from the world's best memory champions. So they have 5 memory principles to make any story unforgettable. So whenever your story is feeling flat, refer back to these 5 memory principles. The first memory principle is visuals. So I want you to imagine that you're out in the city or you're out in public, and do you notice how you bump into someone that you have seen before, you've met before, but you can't remember their name? And then you're in this awkward interaction where they approach you and they say, "Hey, Aunt, good to see you again. Haven't seen you in ages." And they start engaging with you and asking about your life. And they're using your name, but when it comes to you speaking to them, for the life of you, you know what they look like, you know who they are, but you just can't remember their name. Terrible situation, it's awkward. And the reason why you can remember their face, but not their name, is because our brains are a lot more inclined to remember things that are visual to us versus sounds. Okay, so it's not that you have a bad memory, it's the fact that your brain learns a lot better and retains information when it's visual. So using this in your stories, whenever you start a story, can you make it even more visual? Can your audience picture something very specific in their mind as an image when you start to tell your story? Now, the second memory principle is something called the law of association. So a little story, back in lockdown when I was living at a share house, we had one room vacant and we were looking for a new housemate. And we had a few people come through, and there was this one girl that came through and really bubbly personality, a really good fit, got along with all of us. And she walks into our bathroom and she starts to gag and she starts to look a bit sick. So obviously we're like, "Are you okay? If you need to take a moment, do your thing." She takes a moment, takes a breath, comes back and explains to us that when she walked into the bathroom, she's never been in there before, but she smelled something that made her remember a past experience in her life. And what happened was she smelled hand soap, the liquid hand soap, and it was this milk and honey scented soap. And that smell took her back to this time when she was in Europe and she was on a sailboat and she got seasick. And I think she also got food poisoning. So she was vomiting furiously and she would wash her hands after vomiting. And the soap she was using to wash her hands was that exact milk and honey liquid soap. So despite her never going into our bathroom before, the fact that her brain associated that smell of the liquid soap made her feel sick. Why is this relevant to the second memory principle? Well, our brains, again, will retain information when it can associate something we've experienced to something new, okay? It's associating something old, something we've already experienced, to something new. So when it comes to stories, when you can be a lot more relatable, when people can associate their own experience to your story, that's when resonance happens. So how do we do that? The more universally relatable things you can share in your story, the more people can associate their experience with yours, and therefore more connection happens. Now, the most universally relatable thing that all us humans experience and share in our lifetime is emotions, okay? And I'll go into that a bit later. So if I got you to sit down and close your eyes or just picture yourself in front of your home, and I got you to walk through your hallway and go in front of your fridge, and now let's say I get you to open up your fridge and you're looking at your fridge. Did you have any issue picturing yourself at your front door or walking through the hallway or being at the front of your fridge? Almost 99% of people don't have a problem with it. Why is that? It's because it's a location that we visited many times in our life, okay? So the point of this is locations are something that we revisit regularly, and therefore it's more easier to remember. So whenever you're telling a story and you're saying, "I was driving down the freeway," or I was in my kitchen, it actually doesn't matter whether people have ever been in your kitchen before. The fact is, when you say you were in your kitchen, people subconsciously start to picture themselves in their own kitchen because it's something they've been before. So whenever you're trying to describe yourself in a situation in your story, you don't actually have to share every little bit of detail, like what color the tablecloth was or what brand or style your fridge was. The fact that you just say kitchen allows people to know exactly where they are in the story that you're telling. So locations matter a lot. So whenever you open up a story, the main things you want to get across is where are you, what the location is, and about when, like what timeline are you in. Now on to the fourth memory principle. Let's say you are sitting at a fine dining restaurant and you're with a friend or a partner, and everyone's dressed up in these nice black and white tuxedos, and the ladies are dressed in, nice little gowns. In the corner of your eye, there's a table in front of you, and someone sits down, but everyone turns their head and stares at that person. Why? Because that person is wearing this crazy fluoro green colored Hawaiian shirt, and their hair is like full of spikes and it's neon pink. And they're wearing these big framed glasses that are star-shaped and they're yellow. Out of everyone in that room, will you forget that person? No. But you probably will forget all the other couples who are dressed up, looking like you, wearing the black and white tuxedos, but you won't forget that person who has the crazy hair, crazy shirt, and crazy glasses, right? Why is that? Is because it's the unusual things that break our state, which means our brain is taking more attention towards something that's unusual. Okay. So this is where I go back to when it comes to stories, stop trying to be bland. Stop trying to fit your story into the mold of other people's stories, because it's your unique experiences, all the weird and wacky moments that make it unique and make it memorable. Okay. It's the unusual things that we can remember. Now, the last memory principle is emotion. Plain and simple, as I said before, the most universally relatable thing that all humans experience in their lifetime is the range of emotions. So the more that you can lead and show and go to the depths of what the emotion you were feeling and experiencing in your story, the more memorable and universally relatable that story is going to be. Now, an easy way to remember these 5 memory principles is, if you think about it, all of them spell out the word value. So visuals, association, location, unusual, and emotion. Now, a habit that I've had to rework and unlearn is the habit of trying to overperform when telling a story. And a lot of the times people sound more like a motivational speaker than a human when it comes to stories. So here's the test that I use. When you're telling a story, would you sound the same as if you were telling it to a best friend or a family member or even your therapist? And the reason why I use that rule to bring me back is the best stories sound like a casual conversation, as if you're telling a group of close friends at the dinner table. Because the best stories feel like you're part of the conversation, not a performance. And that's what builds trust. I guarantee 90% of the stories that you've heard in your lifetime, you have forgotten. Why is that? Because there is no real change. There's no clear transformation, no before, no after. So you're left hearing something like, I was working on a project, I was really stuck, I tried something new, and I was still kind of stuck. That's not a story. That's a status update. A powerful story always has a transformation. Who were you before? What did you try? What did you try instead? And how did you change for the better? So don't just describe what happened, show who you became. You ever watch a movie where everything just went perfectly? No, right? Because that would be the most boring movie on earth. So then the question is, why do we tell our success stories that way? Why do we share client testimonials and case studies in that light? Because the more perfect a story is, the less believable it becomes. I launched, I sold out, I now kick my feet up, living on the Maldives. Life's good. Cool story, bro. But where's the tension? Where's the realness? How do I know you're not full of shit? People want to hear the tension. They want to hear the challenge that you had to go through to get to where you are today, because that's what makes it real. And when you're real, people can know, like, and more importantly, trust you. And if I think back to some of the greatest movies or my favorite stories that I've heard, there are moments where the main character thinks to himself, I don't know if I'm actually going to make it. In every great story, there is a moment. Doesn't have to be grand, doesn't have to take weeks or years, but there's a moment where everything changes, where everything turns. It could be that moment where you press publish on that video on YouTube. It could be that time where you walked away from a toxic relationship. It could be that moment where you said, fuck it, and you went all in on that thing. That tiny moment is the heartbeat of your story. Zoom in on it, feel it, and share from that place. The best storytellers on this planet don't have the best stories, but they have the most stories to share. And the reason being is they've simply documented and captured them so they can refer and review them whenever they need to. So here's what I do. I keep a story bank on my notes app or on my computer. And essentially, whenever something changes a feeling or a thought or a belief within me, or even just captures my attention, I simply create a new note. I put the title of that moment. I do a one-liner description, and then a key lesson, and then a universal theme that others can relate to. This way, whenever I need to craft a story for a sales page or a keynote or a workshop, I don't have to start racking my brain for new ideas or new stories. I just need to go digging and reviewing what I've already documented. Now here's how to put it all together. The story spine is my favorite format to tell fast and punchy stories. So for example, I was doing something, but then this happened. So I decided to do something different. In the end, this happened and I realized key lesson. So here's an example. I was driving down the highway on a summer evening, but then my phone lit up with a message that stopped me cold. So I pulled over and made a call I'd been avoiding. In the end, it changed how I handle every hard conversation. And I realized courage isn't loud, it's quiet and deliberate. Boom, one story, 5 lines, under 60 seconds. If you want help building your story bank or uncovering your signature stories or tell them in a way that gets connection and trust and converts, then I'll leave some links to some helpful resources and frameworks in the bio below.